Dominic, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. It's a pleasure. I know we've been talking about this for a while about having you on, and so I'm just glad we're making it happen, man. Thanks so much for being on here.
Yo, Kevin, it's a real pleasure to meet you first off. This is the first face to face conversation that we've had. So it's great to meet you first off. And it's a real pleasure to be here hanging with you on this podcast. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
man.
it.
I mean, for the Jazz Muse family that don't know, Dominic Palumbi is he's a drummer, educator, composer, Twitch streamer. We're gonna get into all of those things, but I think a great place to start, and kind of you were alluding to that this is our first face-to-face phone call is how did we first meet? Because I think it's a funny story, and there's more to it than even I maybe know on that end.
Yeah. So we connected, actually, funny enough, on Twitch because we have a mutual friend, Patrick Bartley.
Shout out to Pat. Yeah.
Fantastic alto saxophone player from Florida. I forget what area of Florida per se, but I believe so many people know this name and Patrick alone because not only is he a great person, fantastic musician. I could talk hours and hours about this guy. I've actually had the chance to get to know him because of his J Music Ensemble.
Right.
But I'm going to take things back a little bit and give you the whole context of how I know him in that regards. Roughly about, let's say, 3 or 4 years ago, I graduated college at Rutgers University, finished my jazz degree, as any jazz musician that would, getting out of school, trying to start off and say, all right, real world time, let's see what's good. And I wanted to start my own project, record my own album, get things going, and just play as much music as possible. That happened. It's always been happening. I've always done a bunch of session work and always wanted to do the music thing seriously. But I also had a hobby and a knack of just hanging out with friends and playing games. I always liked playing games when I was a kid growing up. And it was actually funny. I sang with the Rutgers University Glee Club during my 4 years of college when I was at Rutgers. And I got pretty close with some of those guys. And I started hanging out with some of my colleagues, some of my best friends now, after school was done. And they told me one day, oh, we go to this convention called PAX East. I don't know if you ever heard of it. I was like, the heck is PAX East? What does that even mean? It's essentially a gaming convention, you know. And I was like, you know what? It's a weekend excuse for me to hang out with my friends, get an idea of, have some fun, play some games, maybe see something that I've never seen before. Let alone I had no idea what sort in mind to see what music potential would come out from it. So I just went in there to say, hey, I'm going to meet some new people, potentially see some things that I haven't seen before. This was held at PAX East was held at Boston Convention Center up in Massachusetts. So we went there. It was like a 4-day weekend kind of convention, and it was a great time. We went, Wednesday night, stayed Thursday till Sunday was the whole convention. It was, some of the biggest top companies, brands that were existing in the gaming leagues. There's a bunch of tournaments and all that sort of stuff. Long story short, from there, I go there, have a great time. And I was like thinking, man, I have not played drums in like 3 or 4 days. At least the musician in me would think, I need to practice. I need to hit some sort of instrument. And funny enough, there was this space called Jam Space at the convention where music was happening throughout the whole weekend. They were having concerts of bigger bands on the main stage at PAX. And then I decided to go check out this Jam Space on the last day. I was like, I need to play some music. I'll say hey to my friends later. So I go to this jam space, like any jam session that we probably know that we've been to, like going to somewhere in New York, playing standards. This was a little different because it was video game music focused. Some people don't know, excuse me, how much the video game music scene kind of is. I step into the room and there's this band on stage, this band named the Super Soul Bros. They're a funk soul video game band based out of San Jose, California. Didn't know who they were at the time, didn't know anybody. I talked to somebody that had a clipboard and said, hey, can I get on the jam list? And they had a huge projector with a list of tunes that were all like classic video game tunes. And some of them I didn't know, some of them I did know. I think I remember picking one from like The Legend of Zelda. So I picked that tune, listened back to it, and pretty much give it a shot. I jump on stage, meet some of the musicians. The keyboard player at the time was this guy named Robbie Benson, who's a fantastic organ player, but he, totally does left hand bass stuff and then everything else on his right hand, like organ players would. So he's like playing bass player on his left hand and then keyboardist and everything in his right hand. He's fantastic. The session happens. It went really interestingly, I'll say, to the very least. And I meet some of the guys in the band. I hear the band play after that. I meet the drummer and I say, see you later. And that was kind of the end of that story. A year goes afterwards, and I had a really great time going to that gaming convention. I decided to go again with the same friends to the following year. 2 weeks prior, before that convention came up, the same band was headlining one of the Saturday night concerts at that same convention. And I was like, wait, I know these guys. So I went, did my research, found the drummer's name, found him on Facebook, friended him, and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I sat in with you guys at this jam session last year on this tune. He was like, oh, yeah, I remember you. The guy, his name is Chris Heyman. He's one of my best friends at this point. Super sweet guy, great drummer. I connect with the whole band. We talk and click, and things were kind of happening. And they let me hang out with them backstage after, their show was over and whatnot. So there was some real gelling that started happening from there because, I was serious about what I was doing. They were like, oh, man, you don't actually suck. But I mean, like, along those lines, they have respect for what I did, and I respected them for what they were doing too. So I started talking with Chris a lot, and we started to just do drummer talk a lot of times. I then wanted to get to know them more, so I flew all the way to San Jose, California that summer in August, I remember specifically, and hung out with them for a weekend. And they were like, oh yeah, we do this thing on Twitch. There's this whole music streaming performance experience, this whole music community that exists on. I was like, really? I didn't even know this existed. So we streamed on their channel, and that those two things combined kind of led me to starting to open up to the live streaming world and the video game music world. So, picture me going to a gaming convention, leading to meeting a video game music band, leading to starting my streaming career, which I had no intention at the time graduating college getting into Twitch streaming. It was not
Yeah, it
even
wasn't on the
I
radar. Wasn't
I didn't
even.
even think about it that way. So it sparked curiosity, and I was just like, let me just try this thing and see what happens. So literally, as soon as I got home that following weekend, I grabbed my phone because anybody can do anything on their phones nowadays. I downloaded an app that's called Streamlabs, and it allows you to stream straight to Twitch from that app. So I plopped it on a microphone stand and pointed it at my drum set because I didn't have recording gear at the time, and I set up, a really, really jank setup with trying to balance all the sound from my drum set to uh, music coming out of a guitar amp and trying to balance and listen to that at the same time just to play along the tracks and have, requests, if you will. That's what started my whole streaming thing. And a year and a half later, this is kind of where I am. I started to, get to know the Soul Bros more. They told me about this convention called MagFest, which is Music and Gaming Fest. It's a dedicated it's a dedicated convention towards music of video games. So I got to meet more people that are serious about the video game music and more serious musicians along those lines. So it started to broaden my network of people within the scene. And then, because of that, I heard about the 8-Bit Big Band, which I believe almost everybody knows about Charlie Rosen's group at this point, and how much he's really, brought this to a,
Big level. Yeah.
big level along those lines. I went out to their first show in New York City, and I went with some of the guys from MagFest that work for MagFest. Dak was his name. Dak is one of my good friends too. Um, Finally got to meet Charlie, but then also Pat. I met Pat for the first time there. I actually saw a video of his with Adam Neely. It's one of those videos that, Adam Neely played in their group, so the whole YouTube effect kind of happened. But it was one of those situations where it was right place, right time. I met Pat. We were talking for a little bit, and he actually called me for a gig that evening to play with his band, the J Music Ensemble, and Donna Burke at the Bowerly Electric. So I did a gig with Pat, and that was our first meeting. And then, I told him about the whole Twitch thing and streaming, and we've just been talking a bunch more. And now he's a great friend of mine too. And, like I said, one thing kind of led to another where I didn't know this whole streaming thing would lead me to meeting a bunch of other really, really great professional musicians and other people that, appreciate the love of video games too. And I've started to appreciate it even more. So that's kind of
Well,
how
that's a
everything
big
came.
thread, but I
Yeah,
mean, let me kind of tie up this thread because I
sure.
like that context sets a lot to what we were doing. So basically, how I first interacted with you was I didn't even know about you, Twitch in general, or really any of this. I had heard about Twitch a little bit, just knowing on the video game side of things and in general news about it becoming this large platform for video games, but not really
Right.
knowing its power for music and musicians. And so I had done one stream during this whole quarantine with Amazon for some jazz, getting Emmett Cohen and Benny Benack to do a stream and La Reserve with their label. And so I had hosted on that, and I was like, that was my first foray into it. But so I created an account or whatever. And then the subsequent weeks, because I had done that, I started to notice like, oh, Patrick's streaming on Twitch. And I had an account now, so I could go watch, check it out. I mean, I know you can watch without an account, but I just made me launch into participating. And I watched one stream of his, and he was educating on swing and all of this. And I just was so blown away by my reaction to the community was night and day to any other online community I've ever been seen. I mean, like, look, I handle a certain kind of community on Instagram. I have to interact with people that way, and Facebook and all these other major platforms. But I was blown away by the positive community that Twitch has. And I know I'm sure there's different kinds of Twitch streamers, but in general, so far, it's just bar none. Each Twitch streamer I'm going on, the chat, the way that the current streamer is interacting with the chat, and just the camaraderie. So I was on that Patrick live stream with, that he was doing. I was basically just in the chat, checking out, saying, hey, what's up to people. I didn't know anyone. And then you gifted me. You didn't even know me. And you gifted me,
I
let's say
gifted
a
you a
sub,
sub.
a
I
sub.
gifted you.
So,
I paid for your subscription for a month for his channel.
let me just put that out there. Like, I didn't even know what you gifted me, but I knew it was a big
Ah,
deal because everyone just started kind of freaking out a little bit in the chat. Like, they were saying like, oh my gosh, thanks so much. And I was like, well, that was cool. And that was like, in what other place online does that ever happen? You know what I'm saying? Because like, to what
yeah,
you're saying, you get to me something real. It wasn't just like, virtual current. I mean, it's a real thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's just to point out that like that struck me immediately. And so because of that interaction, we chatted right there. But then I made note. I was like, you know what? Who is this? And then I proceeded to go tune into your stuff. And then the rest is history. That I messaged you. I was like, hey man, let's hop on a call. I want to know more about this.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you're doing it. I went to your Twitch stream, check it, and it was just as much fun and just as positive. So that's led to this and everything. But let's get into it. So basically, and I also want to get into your setup because like we normally do this gallery view, but I'm actually glad that I have this blown up because you've got a lot going on. So
Dude, I have multiple webcams, so I can swap through all the scenes
that's
too if you want to
it.
see.
Okay. So just for the musician who's never heard or understands what Twitch is doing for music, what do you do on Twitch, and how is it different from another platform out there as far as for musical purposes? We
Let me,
understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make an interesting point because I've been recognizing this a lot as of late too. I got my degree in jazz performance, and it still to this day surprises me that Twitch is a live streaming performance platform. Essentially,
Yeah.
everybody you see on Twitch, no matter what content they put out there, they're entertainers. We're entertainers. It's weird how much this aligns, and I've told people a lot how much this streaming thing aligns with my gigging life. Whenever I do gigs outside of online stuff with IRL, whether if I'm playing at a jazz club or I'm doing a wedding band gig, the same thing kind of happens where we get into this performance mode and we have to act and know how to do this. I didn't know what I was doing when I first got started on Twitch. So, Twitch, maybe for a lot of people that don't know what it is, it's been a thing for like about 7 or 8 years, if I recall correctly. Before it was actually Twitch, it was called this service called Justin TV,
Mm.
and there was little to no music streamers at that time. from what I know. So, with regards to Twitch, of course, yeah, most people know it for video gamers, people that stream playing their favorite video games because they're professional esports players, or they just absolutely love playing, Legend of Zelda or Fortnite or whatever game it is. And, people can interact with people directly, like the live streams you see on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, any of the other platforms that have live streaming options. But Twitch is solely live streaming. It's the main focus is that person to person interaction at the moment of time, at the current moment, not the future or the past. It's the present that I think is one of the biggest thing I've loved about doing all of this. So you know, and you could stream whatever you want. I think music started to curate once it became Twitch because Amazon owns Twitch. I only know so much about it because I've been doing this for like about a year and a half. Um, but at least the potential is you can technically stream whatever you want as long as it's agreeable to Twitch's terms of service. You
Right.
can't stream like some non-PG stuff or whatnot. I mean, you can go PG-13, but then you're going to cross the line at a certain point depending on the content you're trying to create. So for me, what I do on Twitch is I play a lot of people's requests. I like to, play drums versus a video game. I, play along to tracks whether I know them or not. It's almost like how we do everyday shedding. Sometimes we're playing along to one of our favorite tunes and we want to know what the musicians are doing. Whether it's like you're playing along to Miles Davis or John Coltrane. For me, like either Elvin Jones or Max Roach, or some of the greats that I always appreciate, and the currents like Nate Smith or Mark Juliana or anybody along those lines. It's kind of like a Pandora's box whenever I'm jumping into these streams. I may have a theme specific in mind, or I try to, you know, kind of give some sort of direction to my viewers. But I usually try to give the viewers as much acceptability, or it's not a great word for it, but I try to give them as much choices available to kind of help make the stream more exciting for me because I like the interactivity involved. So I have, requests so people can request for free, but then they can donate and help me get to goals, whether if it's buying new gear, whether if it's trying to do a crazy stream or something different or unorthodox. Like heck, I did a couple weeks ago, I did an all snare drum kit stream. I own like 5 snare drums, and I changed my whole drum set to just snare drums to try it out and see what would happen. It worked out, but it was different. It was very different. And that's kind of what I say is like you can curate the stream to whatever you want it to be along those lines, musically speaking or non-musically speaking. It's even just like for the general person out there, even though we're talking for mostly younger musicians or people that have never heard of Twitch before, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, so what for younger musicians? Why? Let me put it this way: why did you choose? I know you had these experiences that were very exciting to get you into this, and now that you've been doing it, I mean, you do this. You made an active decision to commit to it, right? And you stayed with
Yeah.
that commitment. And by commitment, I just mean you're doing it every day, or almost every day a week.
Not every day. So I guess when I first got started out, I started from ground zero. I didn't have like, this crazy following on another platform that would help me, have a successful career. Whereas people that were gamers or longtime gamers or longtime YouTubers even would have an easier time bringing their following over from YouTube to Twitch. For me, it was literally 0 followers, 0 viewers. So I had to start from ground zero and work my way up. So, like, if I trace back to when I first got started, I was just streaming 4 times a week, I think for like 2 or 3 hours at a time, because I can only handle so much drumming at the time. And, there are streamers that are gamers that stream 7 to 8 hours a day because that's their job and that's what they, actually live off of, for those that take it so seriously. I didn't know what potential would come from Twitch. I think that was the most interesting thing. I was trying it out and seeing like, hey, let me see if this is something I can try out that would potentially lead to some open doors or try something different. The more I kept streaming, more people started to watch. But additionally, I like to equate it towards being around. I actually met Wynton Marsalis a long time ago, went to one of his Christmas shows at Jazz in Lincoln Center. And till this day, I still remember the quote of, you always got to be around if you're trying to play with somebody, or if you want to be with somebody or eventually play along with things. So I took the same concept of like trying to watch as many other people as possible on Twitch so people will get to know who I am, watching other drum streamers or watching other music streamers, you know, not trying to step on each other's toes, but when the opportunity came, saying, "Hey, I'm also a streamer too. I do this music thing." When I was new at the time, and I've I've crossed that path many a times where it was like, you want to make sure you're a viewer when you're in somebody else's stream. Uh, so it took me quite a while to kind of get started. But then once more and more people started to find out about it, I started to see some significant growth. It was a real grind. It was like a real grind. I was doing it for at least four days a week. And then for the longest period of time too, I was trying to balance it between regular work and gigs. So there were some days where I'd have a dance accompaniment class that I'd play for Rutgers because I'm a dance accompanist on the side too. So I'd play a class in the morning, I'd have a stream in the evening, or a stream in the afternoon, and I'd have like either a gig in the evening or something along those lines. So it really became a challenge of how to balance my streaming versus gigging life along those lines. So now, since quarantine hit, I've decided to try to push this as hard as I can, because with everybody being home nowadays, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be one of the best things I can try to do right now, is to try to stream as much as possible and tell my community I'm serious about this because of how much it's grown over the past year and a half.
Yeah.
So
But like anything else, like what you're saying, I mean, anything's a grind, right? Like it's not nothing. There's no instantaneous success. Rarely
no,
does that happen. And
no,
in this case, there's maybe a larger upfront commitment because it's real time streaming for long periods of time. Generally, I don't see streamers usually doing short amounts of time. It's usually these larger 3 couple hour blocks, certain kind of blocks. But I mean, this is something that by committing to that, and I understand the struggle of balancing, believe me, I've for the same thing with Jazzy. It's like being a musician, taking that on full time, it can be a lot. But
right.
you can, like, so people can come to, basically people can casually check out your channel, but basically the goal is to increase subscribers. Is that correct? Basically, in a sort of like numbers kind of way, if everyone's committing to supporting you financially in these small dollar amounts, it adds up to where this can be your full-time gig. Is that correct?
You could think about it that way. I guess the biggest thing I forgot to mention first off is, you do it because you love it, and that's the one thing I think I still try to remind myself of. I get in my head a lot about thinking about money and thinking about monetization and stuff like that. But the biggest thing is, first, you do it because you enjoy it. You do it because it makes you feel happy, it makes you feel good. Secondly, yes, the money helps. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily the goal of to increase subscriber counts. The biggest streamers on Twitch do have some significant subscriber counts, but that fluctuates month per month.
Mm.
That's a monthly payout that one of the biggest streamers can have almost 10,000 subs, and then that can drop to like 7 or 6,000 by the end of the month period. And that payment changes, that amount changes month to month. Not every streamer can maintain that crazy amount of subs. For me, I've always varied anywhere from 150 to 200, but these past 2 months have been my craziest months ever, where I've almost I've hit over 1,000, and now I'm up to like 700 or something. So it's like it's always fluctuating and changing. But I think the nice part is, if the community sees that you're passionate about something, they're going to want to support and help you to get to your goals that you want to do to improve, whether if it's, to get more gear, whether if it's to improve the quality of your stream. So like, I didn't have this set up when I first got started. I had roughly the same drum set, but I started with an iPhone streaming, and now I have, 4 webcams, 5 microphones, 2 mixers at the moment, a decent gaming laptop that allows me to do everything, and this setup helps me for online recording, online lessons, any kind of freelance session work, or even podcast stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's actually amazing how much this Twitch thing has helped me serve for multiple purposes outside of just streaming.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing I think is the goal of making sure you're willing to do it because you want to do it and you want to build a community that will be supportive of the content you put out. Because we're live streamers, we're content creators too. We always are trying to put out a message out there or something, some way, shape, or form.
100%. I would say that, like, I guess let me rephrase that question. Not that the goal is subscribers, but once we're all, as musicians, it's kind of like there's a lot of there was more options out there of like, well, I can focus as live gigs is kind of my
Right.
main income source. Like, you love playing your music but there are different avenues. So I just meant that, is Twitch, I guess at the heart of what I was trying to get at is Twitch, and we've talked about this, is Twitch something that can actually sustain you instead of maybe one of those things, if you so feel, because maybe you love doing music, but you like doing it in this way as opposed to maybe something other kind of music grind.
Yeah, I think it totally can if you put in the time and effort to it. Maybe I'm not making a crazy amount of money where, like, I'm still living at home, my folks. Let's be real here. I'm still, lucky that I'm living under a house with my parents and they're willing to not let me pay for any rent or anything like that at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, down the line, I'm going to have to think about being somewhere else, paying for bills, paying for rent, paying car payments, paying for insurance and stuff like that. And, I've made a decent amount of money through Twitch alone than others because of, just the willingness of being able to grind through the moments of being, or like, those lull moments. There's always the highs, there's always the lows, as like almost any gigging thing that we have too. There's going to be those really great paying gigs. There's going to be those really low paying gigs that the music isn't so happening either. So I get kind of the similar experience with regards to that if you put the time into it, I mean, it's a real grind. It took me about 3 or 4 months to finally get my first payment through Twitch. With monetization through Twitch, you have to collect at least a minimum of $100 through their currency, which is either subscriptions or bits alone, just to get that minimum amount of money. And then anything else you make above that, you get to curate those and keep those profits. But then, outside of that, people can donate to you, and then that's straight to you. That cuts Twitch as the middleman. So it depends on how much time you put into it, I would think. If somebody is only doing it, once or twice a week for an hour or two, you're gonna set yourself up for a much slower grind than doing it 4 or 5 days a week, or other streamers that are on there every day.
Well, to get to what you're saying though, is like, I think let's get into this, because I think is cool is that I got excited about Twitch because basically what I ended up seeing is, here are musicians who no longer have to report to anyone, in a sense, like the gig. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you made the stream your own. It felt like, and even between you and Pat, like, it felt like I was watching Dominic's show. Like, whatever that is, like, it can be obviously other things in music, but like, it was like I was watching your show. And I think as a creator, as an artist, that's very exciting, because a platform with that much customization really hasn't existed and hasn't allowed musicians to kind of do their thing however they want. I mean, like you even said, your setup started a certain way, but like, look at your setup now, man. And I even remember watching your stream. You had like, you have your community, you have a name for your community. You even have a fun thing with like My Peeps, and like every you basically customize every aspect of the whole thing. And I think that level of entertainment is just, in some gig situations, is not possible. I mean, we all know those gig situations where we're stuck at a venue where we're not even maybe interacting with people in a direct way. And the limit, there's so many like conditional limits on even allowing the musicians to entertain the people they're playing for. I feel like there's a big gap there that musicians aren't even getting practice at entertaining. They're really just getting practice at playing whatever's asked of them, but that's not the same thing. And I think that as a Twitch streamer, I just found it was really cool to watch, whether it was you or Patrick or anyone, like, you have to entertain the entire 3 hours you're talking. Something's happened while you're playing. Someone says something in the chat. You have to think about what they're saying, also be listening to the music and stay with that, and respond while playing. and maybe even cue something, because you have even like when certain things happen, you cue certain things to occur on
Yep.
your panel, which is exciting too. It's just like the amount of like things happening at once. I mean, only a drummer would be like really capable of like the separation, but I just feel like that's what got me excited about this. So, I mean, does that kind of resonate with you, that on like as a creator, the full control you have as opposed to other
Yeah.
situations?
It's so funny. Like I said, it still resonates to me how much, my Twitch performance career and my gigging performance career feel like in line. When I got started into this, I had to learn on the rope of just talking, getting used to interacting with people in chat. Maybe you don't see those faces of everybody in chat personally, or you don't know where these people are coming from, because they're coming from all over around the world. The biggest thing I think I have about it is, it's like, it gets you out of your comfort zone. So you have to do things maybe you're not normally used to. If you're such an introverted person and you're not used to like talking to people regularly, you have to, break that barrier open and start, interacting with people, because you're not going to draw an audience if you're not being the person that's, making those things happen, making those engagements happen, even just by seeing somebody's username come in and say, hey, how are you doing? It's good to see you here. um, a simple greeting can make at least somebody feel a little bit more welcome along those lines. And that's even besides the music point. It's interesting too, thinking about some of those gigs that exist out there when we're playing for a corporate event, or we're just playing background music. There's a lot of those uh, limitations that don't allow you to have that full musical or full performance experience, unlike some gigs where everybody's invested into the significant amount of time it is. That's why I think I love live streaming so much, is it really captures that moment that you share with those people right then and there. There's no replacement of that. And I think it's also such a neat coincidence to jazz music, because the jazz is always so focused on the moment in time, not like the present, or not the future or the past. It's something that magically happens when you're locked into that situation. And I feel like that's what really makes it interesting. Like you're saying, there's so much going on in the stream, and you have so much customability available for whatever you want to call your community, whatever you want to like brand yourself as, along those lines, without stepping on other people's toes. A lot of that stuff I've actually learned from just watching other streamers, like how people transcribe the greats and learn their licks, that from listening to those albums. It's the same ideology. You watch other streamers that you really like, and you taking bits and pieces of what you like from them. There's a few streamers that I like that I've stolen their bits, because I like the way they do things. Like one streamer I like, he does this like really 3 camera zoom, so it zooms into my face like 3 times as much when I'm like trying to have a real serious moment, or just trying to be funny, even though I'm usually not that funny. But it's those little gimmicks and those little things and tricks and tips that will just make you a better performer, because it forces you to think, what else can I do to make this myself? How does Don Palumbi look on the outside, or how does everybody perceive me in the way that I like to think people as?
Well, but I think that's a skill that isn't honed, unfortunately, in our education growing up very often as players. I mean, what you're basically saying is that it makes you focus on the audience and what they're perceiving, their perspective. How can you get them more involved? You're constantly
Right.
thinking, what can I do to make this more exciting for them? And how often was that a conversation ever? I mean, I think it's really cool that it's bringing jazz is very inter-focused. You're looking at your playing. How am I? It's so self-critical, and that's great for self-development. But then I
Right.
think that kind of gets crossbred into like that's how we also treat the audience. And unfortunately, I don't think that actually helps your audience engagement. But I think it's cool that like that's why it's exciting when I see performers like yourself or other musicians that are learning these new platforms, that are doing those extra skills and taking on those things to take this to the next level. What are the things for our young audience? I mean, basically, what are the skills that after doing Twitch and all these things, what are the things you think that young musicians should think about or get under their belt to kind of be prepared for maybe they don't want to do Twitch necessarily, but just across the board, what are some of the things that you think that they should start to acquire and get good at? So these auxiliary skills, besides their actual music, that can help them be in the modern career kind of, what are the things you think that people are not taught teaching or they should look for?
I mean, I think one thing's for sure of just getting out of your comfort zone. If you're ever second guessing something along those lines, you should just do it anyway, because you're never gonna know unless you try. My dad always says that all the time. If you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't ask, you don't get something. That's just something that I know my dad has always said, and I think maybe my professors at college did say that too. But I think I don't think of that enough, and I always try to make sure that I make opportunities for myself. This whole stream thing has helped me create other opportunities because of just being grounded in this. I mean, like outside of this helped me start to learn how to record my drum set. This started to help me understand basic drum miking for audio stuff. This helped me understand how to make things look good with regards of lighting. Like my lights that I have for my setup, my family got me for Christmas 2 years ago or something, which is super dope because they were like, they love how passionate I am for this thing. So like recording, I'm trying to think what else. It's like it's hard for me to explain because there's so much that I've grasped on just doing this whole streaming thing, even just like talking to people, just making conversation with other people, even if you never know them. I know this is the first time we're having a conversation together, but it's like I feel like I already know you for like a few months or something,
Yeah.
along those lines. It's one of those things where it's kind of like you naturally have the habits or the skills to talk to people or act a certain way, but doing it on a consistent basis kind of starts to help give you a new sense of encouragement, a new sense of confidence too. So whenever I'm sitting in this seat and I'm ready to stream, I have a sense of confidence in me that I'm like, okay, it's almost like putting on a mask, but not really at the same time. Whenever I'm playing something, maybe I'm playing sort of the same songs on a different stream, because I do that a lot for my own sake, just to make sure I'm, playing whatever I need to play. But you get in a sort of different mental space as long as you have that sense of confidence. It makes you feel a little bit better. So I mean, like I just say it helps you kind of get yourself in a better headspace too. I mean, there's ups and downs for streaming and performing in general. There's going to be those bad times. There's going to be those really great times. There's going to be both and in between. Um, so
But you fall
I
back on the consistency, like
yeah
saying, like even when you made the choice to just do the next consistent action. Like, I mean, my brother and I talk about this. Like, it's not like every meme or joke we've made on the channel hit home, and the difference is that that's not where we just gave up. Like, well, that one didn't land today. I guess it's over.
yeah
Like, we just did it again tomorrow, and like basically falling back on that consistency empowers you to also know that third level, which is that even if things are going up or down, there's still a trend to that, and that trend can be positive. So you don't get shaken even by an occasional misstep if you know you're still trending positive over the long run. Um,
yeah
and I think that's what coming from your consistency. One thing it also sounds like you were pointing out, which is just like be creative. I mean, be open to the creativity. Like it opens up you up to, like you're saying, you got into drum miking, you kind of got curious about like, oh wait, how can this whole setup get better? And it just like
yeah
mind space made you creative and curious about everything that you were doing. So all the skills improved kind of in that sense.
yeah it even helped me learn how to use like a bunch of new programs too, or new software. So like OBS, open broadcasting software. It's a totally free software that you can actually use for recording. You can use it for live streaming on pretty much any platform for what I know. I never really knew much about it, but if anything, it's a great way and a resource for me to just record videos for myself. So if I need to, make a video for, my best friend Dave Pollock, I make videos, drum videos for his content all the time. I quickly turn on one of my webcams at like 1080p and set up using a DAW. I almost forgot also how to use a DAW. So recording and making sure the sound is going, is working correctly. So I'm creating, video and audio for other people. That allows me to just, make sure I'm putting myself out there in the best way, shape, or form, making sure the audio sounds good, the video looks good too, and it's just like, yeah, it's a lot of those things that they don't teach you in school, or sometimes those old tricks sometimes don't necessarily always come out of the bag. It's always the new tricks that sometimes you find along the way that will help you rehash those old tricks, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, one of the things I also want to get into is that this creative side of you. I mean, like I said earlier, like your channel was just customized in every way, and it made it so much fun. It made it unique to you. We also, one of the other things you've been doing recently, a lot of, and it was really exciting to see, and I thought was fresh, was you on Instagram. On your Instagram, you've been doing these collaborations. So can you tell me a little bit more about those collaborations you've been doing? Because I mean, those were I
Sure.
get a lot of joy seeing like who you're collaborating with, and they're all different. So let me know what's going on with that.
With that, so because of the virus and because of the quarantine that's happening, that's kind of encapsulating everybody, preventing gigs from happening, preventing musicians from getting out there, I thought of like, okay, what's the second best way that people can collaborate on the internet, and what can I do to at least get me to make some daily content along those lines? So I kind of went with the hashtag. It already exists, but Instagram Jams. I've loved the idea of like at least trying to collaborate with as many people as possible, whether if I know them or not. I'm gonna just try to make music, just try to shout out somebody else that I think I really dig their work or they're playing. So I have like about 67 episodes right now and
Wow.
counting, which is pretty crazy to me. I tested it once, like a week or two before, with a friend of mine. He's actually the guitarist for the Super Soul Bros, that funk soul video game band, Brian Shu. And I did a video with him, taking an existing post that he had on his Instagram. I went on his Instagram page, I scrolled all the way back to see and find a video of him solo playing guitar that was loopable. So I would find content that already exists and try to add drums to it, just to kind of add that layered experience, to add some more context, not necessarily for the clout per se. I'm doing it because I want to create with other musicians that maybe I wouldn't get the chance to create with, or, you know, potentially make new opportunities create from that. So, I've done a bunch of these collaborations from day one, and sometimes I'll go crazy. I have a loop pedal and a keyboard here that I'll even add to their existing video. So I'll add a whole second or third layer to it outside of just playing drums. There's a bunch of internet people that are really big. Like I've done stuff with Adam Neely's previous posts. I think I did one with Insane in the Rain. I just did one with Victor Wooten. He only has like one video of him actually playing a funky bass line, probably from like a preamp interview or something. But I was like, this is gold right here. I can use this to just to slap a great funk drum beat. So I just try to find anything in between. And I've hit up a bunch of friends, colleagues saying, hey, if you're interested, send me a video that's a minute long and I'll add some drums to it. So like I have a bunch of people that have sent me a bunch of videos. So like I have days and days of work actually that I've put onto myself. And this is all for free. I don't make any money off of this. I'm doing this because, I wanted to put some work on myself to push my Instagram game to the next level and put out some content that maybe people have not seen before, or just do something a little bit different to be sane during this quarantine time.
Yeah, but it's also engaging because I mean, like you said, you're putting this out so much that it's like I'm excited to see who you're collaborating with next, and then not only
Yeah.
that, the effect that you're looking for of shouting someone out is working. Like I'm like, oh, who's that? I've never heard of them before. I go down that rabbit hole based off
Yeah.
of just the interaction you're having. So it kind of all comes back to this building of community. I mean, whether you're doing it on Twitch or on Instagram, you're very much a driver of community and building and working to build up this positive network, whether it's from the video game world or on your personal side of Instagram, like between jazz and all everything you're doing. I mean, is that Is that kind of the goal here, or what's your goal with what you've been doing? Is your goal to kind of just expand this as far as humanly possible, or do you have something specific in mind?
You know, it's really funny. That's the biggest question that I've been still asking myself of what do I ultimately want to be doing for the rest of my life with regards to this career. Um, One second, I need to plug in my laptop.
Oh, yeah, that don't worry, that's crucial. That's the big why right now.
All right. So I'll try to repeat what I said for video's sake.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
It's a very interesting question because that's still the same question that I'm asking myself with regards of what do I ultimately want to be doing with my music career and my drum career in general. You know, going back to when I first got out of college, you know, I was gigging a lot with my own group at the time, and I was thinking, okay, you know, if I can make it being a band leader and leading my own project, playing my own music, you know, that would be the dream at the time, and that was great for a while. And I don't want to say I got tired of it, but I had bandmates, you know, move to different locations, so we weren't necessarily able to get together all the time. And it's still a dream. It's still something I'd like to do. I think the biggest thing is I've been so open to anything at this point that I don't really know. I'm kind of willing to just push these avenues as far as I can see to see what happens. You know, I think having a goal that's 10 years ahead of your time is always going to be a great idea. So, like, whether if it's playing with X pop artists on a world tour, or you know, playing for these kinds of people, whether it's playing more video game music, writing music for a video game, you know, becoming a full-time streamer on Twitch, or you know, continually becoming a full-time content creator or something. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like I've really started to find out what I've been enjoying doing currently in this moment in time because of this quarantine. It's really started to open my eyes and ears to the potential of like what the internet can do, and how lucky we are to have these resources at our fingertips. Because without the internet, you know, I don't think the world would be making as much headway as we would now. So, you know, still, I'm actually not really sure what I ultimately want. I
Hey,
know
that's
for
okay. That's okay.
yeah,
I
for
mean,
one thing,
yeah.
as long as I'm playing drums, I think that's the biggest deal. As long as I'm making music and being happy and doing it, that's the goal. That's the
Right. That's
ultimate
just
goal.
the internal check-in okay, cool. Then we're on a path. That's right.
Yeah. Where how to get there, not entirely sure, but I'm liking what's going on so far.
Hey, man, me too. Well, okay. Before I know, I still want to, I want to make sure I'm still respectful for your time. I'm sure. I'm not even sure you might have a stream after this. You going all night, but what is something that? And I'm just curious. This just came to me. What's something that you would like to see more of on Twitch? Basically, as someone who uses Twitch a lot, like for them, is there something music related? I mean, I've just been thinking about that. Twitch is, like you said, perfect for jazz, and there's so much that hasn't been brought to Twitch in that world. Is there something that you've been like, man, I really wish someone would come to this channel with something like this or something else?
Well, it's funny you bring that up. So like I wouldn't say just jazz. You know, when I first jumped onto the platform and started to get known between all the Twitch drummers, there's a bunch of drummers. Like, I'm gonna tell everybody right now, the music community on Twitch, I feel like has been one of the best communities that I've experienced. You know, there's no level of positivity that I've received from an internet base of people before ever in my life. You know, of course, family and friends come first, and people that are close to me, of course, that. But as soon as I started, you know, really doing this thing seriously, the amount of support and positivity that I've gotten from just people on the internet, you know, from being interactive in my streams or whatnot, I've never really have gotten this, you know, level of encouragement before. And every person you meet is always somebody, you know, that's really passionate about what they're doing. So to see what could potentially be more of on Twitch is interesting. Currently, if you go on Twitch and you try to look at every single musician possible, you know, if anybody asks who's the jazz drummer of Twitch, they point it to me because I'm technically, you know, the only jazz drummer on Twitch. There's a bunch of drummers that are, metalheads, or, people that just play funky beats. And there's a lot of great drummers out there. I swear to God, there's more people that, play play more electronic drum sets than acoustic. But any musician that you see, whether it's a singer songwriter, a pianist, there's a couple harpists on there. There's not too many horn players that I've seen on Twitch. Um, there's only a few that I know of. But it'd be nice to see some more serious musicians on there too. Actually, the more I think about it, where more people of like mine or Pat's caliber. Not that I'm not trying to throw any shade towards anybody, but it would be one of those cool things to see some serious people like the Roots. Questlove is doing DJing now on Twitch, from what I see. Twitch did a huge fundraiser for COVID stuff where they brought in a bunch of pop artists. I'm trying to think who off the top of my head. There are some significant, serious like singers from bands that are on Twitch, and the name's skipping me off the top of my head. I don't remember. But there are names and celebrities that do stream on Twitch regularly, like Dead Mouse.
Yeah.
Dead Mouse used to stream a lot on Twitch. I don't know if he's doing that anymore. Dang it, I'm forgetting. But it'd be kind of cool to see Twitch. Twitch is already recognizing it too, of being a level of not just gamers. The biggest move they made recently, if you log on to Twitch and anybody logs on to Twitch, you're going to see Twitch esports music. There's an official music tab that exists on the website. And when you click on it, live performers have priority. So, there is a likely chance you'll see potentially my stream or some of the top streamers that, are on Twitch, music streamers, that you'll see on the very first few, rows of columns of categories or streams along those lines. So, it just is curious because it's always constantly growing. So it'd be nice to see some other serious jazz cats get on Twitch. And there's a couple friends that I know that are starting, and I'm helping them out. And more people reached out to me recently saying, "Hey, what's this Twitch thing all about?"
Hey
So it's
man,
very
well,
funny.
we're here to help spread the gospel. I mean, I even asked you those same questions, and it's something we're thinking about too, because I think I'd like to see the same thing. If there can exist such a positive community, why not bring all the cats to that place? I mean, if they don't, that's what I'm talking about. I want musicians that really, I think, would get a lot out of feeling that there's a community that is that positive and supportive behind them. Because I
Yeah.
think right now there's people on channels and platforms that don't make them feel that way, and they're putting all the time and effort behind it, but they're not getting the response. And I think Twitch could be that for them. And I think that would be really empowering for the artist.
Yeah, I like to describe Twitch as a worldwide stage on the comfort of your own home, because it's it's like the best gig ever, but you get to do it right from your own home. It's like you don't have to go anywhere. You're not paying for any gas. You're not schlepping gear to a gig in like 2 or 3 story building or anything like that, and you don't have to wait 2 hours later to get paid for the gig. People can just say what's up. It's like a hang. It's like you get to hang with 100 of your best friends, and people are are willing to support you and help you on achieving goals that you want to do whilst you're performing or shedding or practicing, whatever way you want to think about it as.
That
Yeah,
sounds awesome. That sounds
it's
like the platform for me and for musicians out there. I appreciate you kind of educating on us on Twitch. Before we go, with the young musicians out there, we always kind of ask this at the end. Is there something you'd like to leave our audience with, a thought? Just it could be anything, inspiration or an idea you've been thinking of, anything, just to kind of send us off.
Man, it's so interesting in today's day and age. Everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own kind of thoughts on what they see the world as. um if anything, for me, I've started to try to be more open about stuff. I've started to at least try to think about what's the best way I can be me. What's the best way I can listen to other people first before myself, even when it comes to playing. How can I suit the music before I suit myself? How can I think of others? This whole streaming thing made me start to realize, if I can take care of my audience and if I can take care of other people first, it'll make me feel better about what I'm doing. It'll make me appreciate why I'm making these things happen or why these things are happening in that sense. So I think the biggest thought I have is being mindful, being aware, being accountable, being sociable, even just being a great person. I try to be the nicest person I can be along those lines because I'm not funny, I'm not smart, I'm not the keen. Well, I mean, I'm pretty keen, I think. It's just a matter of just being a good person. It's easier said than done, and I'm not the best at taking my own advice. But for some reason, I am pretty dang good at giving other people advice on what to do, even if it's music or life or drumming related or whatever in that sense. Not even regarding the stream stuff. So, you know, be a better person, be mindful of others, and do it because you enjoy it.
Hey man, that powerful words, and it, sometimes it's simple. It's not like you said, it's not easier said than done, but it doesn't mean that that's wrong. It's the
No,
way it is.
yeah.
So
And that's real talk too. If you ever come into my stream, I keep it real. I don't like to BS anybody. I don't like to hide things unless if I have special things planned. I usually tell people the way I feel about something, and I think that goes to show if you know how to represent yourself in the best way and being honest with people, you're going to get that stuff back. I read a tweet today that was, the world is being in such weird times, but it's most important that we recognize how it's important to treat other people the way you want to be. Sensitivity, yeah, potentially people will throw it right back at you. That's
yeah.
that's the biggest thing I try to do.
Well, you're doing it, man. I felt the love from the first time I was in the chat and from your streams, man. And I'm looking forward to tuning in more as much as I can. And I hope our Jazz Muse fam checks you out. Where can they find you? Just give us the usernames, the handles to make sure everyone can check you out and enjoy this as well.
So I currently stream 5 days a week. The best way to see one of my streams, you go to twitch.tv/Dom Palumbi Music. Twitch.tv/DOMPALOMBI Music. That's my live stream. Schedule's probably going to change to 4 days a week because 5 days a week is quite a burnout. But I'm posting videos on Instagram every day at Dom Palumbi Music, same handle. And I collaborate with a bunch of other people on the internet. So if you watch some people on YouTube, you potentially may see me in a video or something. My YouTube channel is lacking a little bit, so I need to work on that. But if you search Dominic Palumbi, DOMINIC PALOMBI, you'll find some videos of me, of some of my own content, some of other people's content that I've been featured in, specifically Dave Pollock's YouTube channel. Shout out to my man Dave, fantastic alto sax player from New Jersey. I'm in a couple of the J Music Ensemble videos of the Chrono Trigger sessions. There's even a video of me playing with this Swedish jazz musician, Simon Fransman. He has a big Jasmine thing. You may have seen some of his stuff.
Yeah, we're talking with Simon. We got some plans, hopefully, for the summer for some of his new releases. I mean, I've been a fan of his videos for a bit, but
I've been working with him recently, so you should tell him I said what's up.
I will tell him, man. Yeah, he told me on the down low. He was like, "Hey, man, Bomb Bomb guy might be coming back," and I was like, well, let's help you out, man. I would love to make that a moment, for our audience and his, and so we'll see.
Yeah.
Man. But I will definitely.
And if anybody wants to check out my website, get to know more about me, you can go to www.dompalumbimusic.com, where you can find all my information. No gigs coming up, unfortunately, but Twitch is my gig, so come watch my live stream.
Yes, come check it out, guys. Thanks so much again, man. I really appreciate it. I'm going to continue to be barraging you with questions about Twitch and how to do everything better. But I really do appreciate you taking the time and educating our audience, man. Thanks so much.
Kevin, I really, really enjoyed talking with you, man. I hope to do this again sometime soon, and we can hopefully make a part 2 out of this. But thank you so much for you and the Jazz Means community for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Until then, we'll get on your Twitch stream, man. That's what we're gonna do.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, man. You have a good one.
You too.